The West Lake, the Qiantang River Type, the Lingying Temple, the Grand Canal. How many jewels must a city possess to be crowned heaven on earth? This is Hangzhou, a shimmering city of wealth and a graceful land of culture. But no city is born a heaven. It surprises many that Hangzhou as a city did not begin with the best natural conditions, nor the best support from the government. Nonetheless, this amiable city withstood 5,000 years of twists and turns, and even bent its fate thrice along the way. Today, it stands as a prosperous and fabulous city, a heaven on earth with picturesque landscapes and 5,000 years of heritage. So what has Hangzhou gone through, and how did it manage? We will address these questions in this video. Let us begin with a great feat accomplished 5,000 years ago. Back then, this place was anything but heaven. Sitting in between the sea and the mountains, Hangzhou has a rugged landform. Mountains populate its western region, with 4 major ranges running southwest to northeast and rising up to 1,700 meters tall. Such elevation differences bring about altitudinal zonation of species and confer barrier effects on water vapor. Facing the sea in the east, Hangzhou's mountains block the income water vapor, which shapes the city's wet climate and give rise to a number of large rivers. Rivers loaded with sediment, in turn, create alluvial plains. All these underlie Hangzhou's geographical configuration. They also explain why the city is constantly threatened by floods and sea encroachment. Around 5,000 years ago, the Liangzhu people arrived and settled here, where they set a precedent for China's competence in infrastructure projects. They constructed a dozen dams along the mountain base, creating the world's largest hydraulic system that held 3 times more water than the West Lake. It was used for flood water control, transportation, and irrigation. Between the dams and paddy fields, a city of water comprised of a palace area, an inner district, and an outer district, measured almost 9 times as big as the Forbidden City. Within the city, 51 canals weaved a crisscrossing waterway that allowed efficient boat navigation. The Liangzhu people also produced diverse jade wares to serve their religious rituals. All this indicates that, as early as 5,000 years ago, the Chinese civilization had already fledged in the hands of the Liangzhu people, as one of the oldest in the world. However, drastic climate changes resulted in floods and marine transgression, which completely engulfed the city. It remained submerged until the sea finally retreated. But the Liangzhu culture was never lost. It continued to influence China. It was eventually imprinted in the 5,000-year-old civilization. 5 whole millennia indeed. Hangzhou's history is much longer than most people think. Being as old as the Chinese civilization, it proves that China's 5,000 years of continuous history was more than a legend. But the frequent natural disasters hinder survival in Hangzhou. People had to make a change to salvage devastated land and forge a heaven from scratch. And the best-known creation for this is the West Lake. The West Lake is not a naturally occurring lake, but a hydraulic engineering project. It was initially a tiny bay along the Qiantang River, but with a natural dam forming through sedimentation and the constant construction of seawalls, the bay budded off as a lake over time. Such lakes normally cannot escape their destined demise due to sedimentation. Yet the visionary governors of Hangzhou saw the long-term value of the West Lake. As a previously submerged city, Hangzhou's groundwater had a briny flavor, but by the Tang and Song dynasties, it was well diluted by rainwater and mountain creeks, allowing it to be utilized for drinking, flood control, irrigation, and canal navigation. Therefore, when other cities were repurposing lake into farmlands. Li Bin, Baizhi, Qianliu, Su Shi, and other Hangzhou officials all took maintenance of the West Lake. They removed silt and constructed dams to maintain water level and improve water quality, which greatly enhanced life in Hangzhou. As such, a small anonymous lake became a welfare-oriented hydraulic engineering project. In return, the West Lake offered far more than its intended engineering purpose. The lake was once so ordinary that Li Bai, the poet from the Tang dynasty, never mentioned it in his works. Yet by the Northern Song dynasty, the very same lake had become a household name. Tourists chanted Baizhi's poem, indulged in Su Shi's gardening style, and sang the sad love songs by Qianliu. Later in the Southern Song dynasty, the West Lake even became the spiritual home for literati. It inspired the everlasting poems and set the 10 sceneries for artists. As the capital city of Southern Song dynasty, migrants along with their culinary traditions merged into Hangzhou. In its heyday, Hangzhou was home to more than 1 million residents. With a rich pool of talents, it led the world in multiple disciplines, including agriculture, handicrafts, commerce, art, and mathematics. Since then, the title Heaven on Earth was bestowed upon Hangzhou for its outstanding elegance, openness, and prosperity. However, prosperity eventually dissolved into sorrow. During the time of changes, how should Heaven on Earth reposition itself in history? And could it hope for another turn of the page? In eastern China, the Grand Canal connects the 5 major river systems en route to the south and intersects with the Qintang River in Hangzhou. But in fact, back in the 7th century AD, when the canal started operating, Hangzhou was already a transportation hub. With a growing commodity economy, during the Ming and Qing dynasties, Hangzhou was among the most densely populated cities in China. The pressure of overcrowding prompted the city to adjust its course again. Across the plains and mountains, people cultivated mulberries, cottons, hemp, rice, bamboos, and tea. This was when the Longjing tea first gained its far-reaching popularity. Within Hangzhou and in neighboring villages, people manufactured fan, knitting yarn, cosmetic powder, brush pen, paper, scissors, umbrella, medicine, liquor, and silk. Almost everything could be made here. To ensure high mobility of goods, dense and dynamic towns took the place as distribution centers. From there, goods traveled great distance by land, and then by water on the Qintang River and the Grand Canal, selling to places all over China, much like modern-day's express logistics. Owing to a pervasive commodity economy, cultural advancement continued to intensify. Artist Huang Gongwang's masterpiece took inspirations from the scenic Fuchun River. Novelist Xu Nai'an's fictional character Lu Jishen attained parinirvana upon arrival of the Qintang Tide. The Leifeng Pagoda commemorates Madame Whitesnake's immortal love. The Wansong Academy whispers the butterfly lover's unwavering attachment. Hangzhou's sceneries were open and approachable to all walks of life. Every being was free to express their joys and sorrows on this shared stage. With that, Hangzhou became a heaven for all, embracing nature and prosperity as much as cheapness and hardship. Unfortunately, a bleak fate was waiting ahead. As the modern era gradually phased out the Grand Canal, Hangzhou lost its prestige as a transportation hub. Nonetheless, the city bode its time for another opportunity, one that would unleash its every potential, acquired over the past 5,000 years. Every August of the lunar calendar, the Qintang River puts on its best show of the year. Influenced by tidal force and seabed terrain, seawater pushes upstream into the Hangzhou Bay and creates this breathtaking spectacle. Being a sand-laden, shallow river, the Qintang River is unsuitable for modern cargo vessels. This leaves Hangzhou with little maritime advantage. But the 5,000-euro city has seen it all. Swimming against the current is in Hangzhou's blood. Upon reform and opening up, people in Hangzhou soon sensed the winds of change owing to their rich experience in commodity economy. They founded China's most influential multinational enterprises, China's largest clothing wholesale base, and the nationally recognized express industry cluster, all as part of the booming private economy. And with the advent of the network infrastructure, Hangzhou set off the wave of e-commerce and digital economy that swept across China and even the world. In these great times, Hangzhou's business environment and talent attractiveness remained top-notch in China. It also showcased its global competitiveness by hosting the G20 Hangzhou Summit and the 19th Asian Games, among other international events. It is noteworthy that, despite becoming more globalized, Hangzhou is still the epitome of Eastern landscape aesthetics. In 2002, the West Lake became the first 5A tourist attraction with free admission and was inscribed on UNESCO's World Heritage List in 2011. The Grand Canal and the archaeological ruins of Langzhou City also made it to the list soon after. Now housing 3 World Heritage Sites, Hangzhou continues to thrive as a modernized heaven on earth. Now let us think back to the earliest days of Hangzhou. The city was never born a heaven. It has come a long way after 5,000 years of perseverance, always metamorphosing into a better form at each and every fateful turn. Today, its charm exudes from the West Lake. Its prosperity glitters along the Grand Canal. Its vigor energizes the ocean tide. Jointly created by Mother Nature and all walks of life, this land gave back to the people a heaven within reach. It took generations to polish its exquisite landscape scroll and to temper this 5,000-year-old city. This is Hangzhou.